Hi, this is Thorn from YouTube channel Therian Territory. You may of course know me from my YouTube channel, however I am on TikTok right now. This is going to be my second new platform and the goal of this channel is going to be to answer some frequently asked questions about the ultra-human community, specifically the Therian community. I have noticed, as have many people, that the Therian community has gotten a life on its own on the TikTok platform, and I am here to make sure that everyone knows the right information about the community and its entirely big history. So go check out my videos and make sure that you are educated before jumping into any identity. See you there. This is my profile disclaimer. On this channel I do not mean in any way to tell you guys that what I am saying is the absolute truth. You're totally allowed to disagree with something. On the other hand, I also wanted to tell you that I do not intend to fake claim anyone. I do not intend to tell who is a Therian and who is not. I'm just going to give you my knowledge about the Therian community and the ultra-human community. I have done quite some research on the topic of therianthropy, and I also experienced therianthropy myself. With that being said, I hope you guys enjoy my videos and I hope you get educated. The first question that I'm going to answer is, of course, what is therianthropy? Therianthropy means you identify as a non-human animal on a non-physical level, and this is usually either a spiritual or a psychological identity. Therianthropy means you experience shifts, behaviors, instincts, and urges from a specific non-human animal or a clod. When experiencing therianthropy, you still know that you are physically human. You either identify as human as well as a non-human animal, or you identify as a non-human animal instead of being human, but you do not believe that you are physically an animal. Someone who experiences therianthropy is called a therianthrope, or a Therian in short. The question that I'm going to answer right now is, how do I know if I am a Therian? If you haven't seen my video yet about what therianthropy exactly is, go check out my previous video so that you know how to know if your experience is actually therianthropy. However, if you are only experiencing a deep love for a specific animal, if you're feeling a deep connection, that does not mean you are a Therian. Therianthropy means that you identify as the animal, aka you actually believe that you are the animal on the inside, not physically of course. In short, if you are experiencing any shifts that are not self-induced, or if you experience any behavior, instincts, or urges that are not really human, then you might be experiencing therianthropy. Aside from all these behaviors and urges and shifts, a lot of Therians also experience a very big connection to the theriotype, to the animal they identify as. However, the connection alone will not make you a Therian. If you do not experience any non-human behavior or shifts or whatever, but you do feel a very big connection to a certain animal, I highly recommend you to look into otherhearted or animal-hearted, also known as kith. The next question I'm going to answer is a Therian the same as a furry? A furry is someone who is into the concept of anthropomorphic animals, meaning animals who have some type of human trait. This interest can be expressed in roleplay, fursuiting, art, and much more. Therianthropy, however, means that you experience animalistic behaviors, traits, urges, etc. involuntarily. Therianthropy has nothing to do with expressing any interests. It rather has to do with expressing an identity. Some Therians may find comfort in expressing their theriotypes through the furry community. On the other hand, some furries may experience animalistic behavior and find out that they have been a furry all along because they are actually a Therian. So while the two may go hand in hand, paired with one another, they don't really have anything to do with one another. They're not really related in any way. One is identity, therianthropy, and the other is simply an interest and a hobby, furry fandom. The next question I'm going to answer is, do Therians need gear to be a Therian? Gear is an accessory or object that is used to somehow connect to your theriotype. To some, wearing or owning gear is simply for fun, so it doesn't even really have to align with your theriotype. This may include ears, a mask, a tail, or anything else, a necklace, or maybe even a statue, any type of object that you deem as a connection to your theriotype. Owning and wearing gear is a personal preference. Not everyone may like wearing or owning gear. Instead, it is something that some Therians may deem as helpful to connect to the theriotypes, and to others it is not. This means that wearing a tail, wearing masks, wearing ears is not equal to being a Therian in any way. The next question I'm going to answer is, can you identify as more than one animal? The answer is yes, you can identify as more than one animal. This would be called a polytherian. Poly meaning more than one. This would mean that you have more than one theriotype. Or you identify as both an animal, meaning that you are a Therian, and also a non-earthen being, aka Otherkin. So having more than one non-human identity is not limited to therianthropy. To give an example, I as a therianthrope identify as both a silver wolf and a betta fish. I am a polytherian. A more extreme form of this is called polymorph. Being a polymorph means that your Therian identity keeps on changing, but every experience is still somewhat the same level of intensity. Next question I'm going to answer is being a Therian equal to being sexually attracted to animals? The answer is no. Therianthropy means you identify as an animal based on animalistic experience. The term used for being sexually attracted to animals is called a zoophile. Therianthropy and zoophilia are two entirely different things. There is only one connection between sexual attraction in general and therianthropy, being that just as we might experience the non-human trait of food possession or the urge to hunt, some Therians might experience a more non-human way of the urge to mate. However, this is not necessarily any different from the human urge to mate. So is a Therian anything equal to a zoophile? Hell no. The next question I want to answer is, does being a Therian mean that you were an animal in a past life? The answer is actually no. You can totally believe that you were an animal in a past life, but this does not mean that you are a Therian. Only if you experience therianthropic behaviors, the animal behaviors, in this life, then that means you are a Therian. But not all Therians believe they were an animal in a past life. In fact, there are many different theories behind why a Therian has their therianthropy. It all depends on the person. There are actually both spiritual and psychological reasons as to why one would identify as a Therian. Theories behind spiritual therianthropy may include past lives, but it could also be just a soul bond or two souls accidentally mixing together at birth. Psychological theories may actually include imprinting or simply believing that the human brain is a weird concept. But the most important message here, if you believe that you were an animal in a past life, that does not make you a Therian. The next question I'm going to answer is, what does it mean when a Therian has a shift? A shift happens when a Therian goes from a more human state to a more animal state. How they shift severely depends on what type of shift they experience. The most known shift being the mental shift, where a Therian suddenly thinks a little more like their theriotype. And another more known one is the phantom shift, where a Therian suddenly feels a limb that actually isn't there. But there are actually way more shifts out there. Sensory shift, perception shift, astral shift, even bilocational shifts. Not every Therian experiences shifts, and there are even Therians out there who are constantly in some type of shift, called a con-Therian or a sun-Therian. A con-Therian happens to always be in the same type of shifts with the same severity. A sun-Therian always happens to be in any type of shifts and any type of severity. Involuntary shifts are actually one of the most reliable sources when looking for a theriotype or any type of ultra-human identity. The next question I'm going to answer is, can you call yourself a Therian based on a deep connection with an animal? This is actually a heavily debated topic in the community, but it is widely known that therianthropy actually means a non-human experience. The experience being the behavior or shifts or urges or instincts of a specific animal or non-human being. Only experiencing a deep connection, but furthermore not experiencing any type of instincts or behaviors whatsoever, is actually mainly associated with the terms otherhearted and animal-hearted. A deep love and a deep connection towards a certain animal only is not going to make you a Therian. If you experience animalistic behaviors and animalistic urges, instincts, etc. in such a way that you could actually call yourself that animal, that you would actually identify as the animal aside from your human identity, only then you can call yourself a Therian. That pretty much has nothing to do with connection or a deep love. It is true that a lot of Therians actually experience a deep connection with their theriotype, but this is not a must. The next question I'm going to answer is therianthropy a choice? And can you become a Therian? The answer is a very straightforward no. Being a Therian is not a choice. It is purely based on involuntary experiences that you have as being an animal. The only term used to describe a non-human identity by choice is a coping link. Coping linkers decide to identify as a non-human being for the only reason that they have to cope with something. Can you, however, become a Therian? Generally, the answer is no. One does not randomly become a Therian. However, it has been stated that therianthropy can suddenly emerge due to some type of outside factor. In that sense, therianthropy is a fluid concept. Theriotypes can appear and disappear and change over time, but you definitely cannot become a Therian simply because you want to, or simply because you think it is fun. The next question I'm going to answer is, what is the difference between being kin and being kith? AKA the difference between being a Therian or otherkin and being otherhearted. Being a Therian or otherkin basically means that you identify as the non-human being on a non-physical level, so you actually think you are that animal. However, when you're otherhearted or animal-hearted, you feel a very specific love and connection and relation to a certain animal or non-human being. You identify with the being if you're otherhearted or animal-hearted, but you don't actually think you are one yourself. A common comparison is the difference between blood family and chosen family. Your theriotype or your kin type are basically your blood family. You actually are part of them. You actually identify as them. However, being kith with an animal or non-human being is basically like chosen family. You've chosen to relate to these beings. You've chosen to feel a specific connection to them. This also means that just like with blood family, you don't have to specifically feel a connection to your therio or kin type. However, with your kith type, your otherheartedness or your animal-heartedness, you do actually feel that specific connection. The next question I'm going to answer is, as a Therian, can you identify as an animal that has already gone extinct? The answer is yes, you can actually identify as an animal that has gone extinct, and that is called being a Paleotherian. There are a lot of Therians out there in the community who identify as an animal that has gone extinct, such as dinosaurs, but also animals who have more recently become extinct, such as the Tasmanian tiger. When looking for your theriotype, it is always highly recommended not to forget about the extinct animals, because chances are actually quite big. The next question I'm going to answer is, do you have to do Quadrobics to be a Therian? Quadrobics is a sport where one would run on all fours and practice jumps, for example. They basically just run both on their legs and on their arms. Therians may enjoy doing this for the purpose of connecting to their animal's side, but also because it's fun. While therianthropy is actually an identity, where you identify as an animal on a non-physical level and experience animalistic behavior. But in the end, most Therians actually don't do Quadrobics at all. So do you have to do Quadrobics in order to be a Therian? No, doing Quadrobics is actually just a personal choice. But does doing Quadrobics make you a Therian then? Also no. In the end, Quadrobics and therianthropy are not related to one another in that sense. The next question I'm going to answer is, what is species dysphoria? Dysphoria generally means that you feel uncomfortable with something, or you have this feeling that something isn't right. The most common type of dysphoria that people are aware of is gender dysphoria. It basically means that they don't feel comfortable in their own body because, for example, their gender does not align the assigned gender at birth. But dysphoria is actually not limited to just gender. There are many types of dysphoria out there, and that includes species dysphoria. Species dysphoria is actually a very common occurrence amongst Therians because they don't just feel as human, and therefore they may feel uncomfortable with the fact that they always live in a human body and always live in a human world. Commonly, they long to be in their animal body and long to be in their natural habitat. Of course, however, you do not need to experience species dysphoria to be a Therian. The next question I'm going to answer is, can you identify as a non-human being that isn't an animal? The answer is yes, but generally this means that you are not a Therian, but actually Otherkin. The Otherkin community is actually very closely related to the Therian community, and it's a community in which people identify as non-human beings that aren't typically animalistic. Usually this includes mythical beings such as dragons, griffins, phoenixes, etc., but also non-human beings that aren't mythical at all, such as aliens or robotkin even, objectkin, plantkin, all that type of stuff. The two communities originated on two different places in two different times, but they both fall under the ultra-human umbrella. But the distinction between the two communities are quite loose, so if you actually identify as a dragon but you want to call yourself a Therian, that's totally okay. The next question I'm going to answer is, can your theriotype have a different gender than yours? Generally, your theriotype is you, meaning that the animal you identify as is not distinct from you in any way. This means that the animal you identify as is in no way different than you. You have the same personality, you have the same traits, and you have the same details, also gender. However, some Therians experience for their theriotype to have a different gender than theirs. They specifically experience animal traits that aligns the behavior or the traits of the animal with the opposite gender or a different gender than their human selves. For example, they experience for their human selves to be entirely male, however their theriotype for some reason has nurture instincts, meaning that their theriotype could be female while they are actually male, so it doesn't necessarily have to align, but by default, it does.